All right, now let's discuss maintaining and servicing window units. All right, your book says on page 1450 that maintenance of room units basically involves keeping the filters clean and the coils clean. And that's it. In later models, the motors is usually permanently lubricated. In the older units, they weren't, and you had to put your little oil thing in them in all the motors. When it's dirty, low suction pressures cause it to freeze up. Service may include mechanical or electrical problems when you need to work on it. Mechanical is the fan motor, bearings, and refrigerant circuits, and of course, you use your gauges and all to check this out. Now, when you talk about servicing the mechanical part of the unit, gauges have to be installed only when necessary. In fact, if you have a unit that needs to be serviced and repaired, that is your last option. You never break into a sealed refrigerant system unless you've proven, without a shadow of a doubt, that that's what you have to do. You never do that. Leave it alone. It's charged perfectly from the factory, and there's no reason for you to get in that system unless you actually prove without a doubt you have to. Don't get in that system. Now, if you do get into it and you have to use a service tap valve like this, like you'll use in a lab, those may need to be installed so you can get the refrigerant out of them, or check the charge and work on something, or just to check the charge, right? Now, if you check the charge and it's low, you have to find the leak. So get your electronic leak detector out and find the leak. So that's the best way to do it, and your bubbles. Now, you already had the leak detection course, so you should know this. Now, if it needs to be checked under a greater amount of pressure than you have in it, you have to recover the freon that's in the system. Now, either way, this valve that your book shows you at the top of 1451, you cannot leave that valve on a unit. It will leak over time. Knowing that, if you leave that line tap valve, that temporary one, on the unit and charge it and walk away, you're knowingly venting refrigerant to the atmosphere. And it can be proven because you left that on that unit. So what you have to do is do what I showed you. Where the pierced hole is, from that, you take that off. You get you one of those service adapters that I taught you how to solder and flat in when you first came. Solder that on there, and now you have a service valve on the unit. That's a permanent service valve that won't leak. So you have to do that. You have no choice. Okay? If you leave those little temporary ones on there, it means you knowingly venting refrigerant to the atmosphere. That's no mistake. Okay. So, then you can charge the unit. Now you're like, oh, I don't know. I done checked the leak. I found the leak. All right. I put dry nitrogen in there and checked it and found the leak. And now I have to properly evacuate the system, which you all remember the definition of evacuation, the course you just had, and repair the leak. Okay. Now, once all that's done and the unit's charged, you're like, well, I don't know how to charge the unit. Well, it's on the label of the window unit. It may say 2 pounds, 3 ounces. So you weigh in that charge, 2 pounds, 3 ounces. Now, is it charged correctly? Yes, because you put in the exact amount that unit uses for full capacity charge. You need 2 pounds, 3 ounces to go in it. Now look what it says. Now don't make the mistake of not remembering that your hoses could count for 2-3 ounces. So you're also going to want to check your superheat on this unit, because it's a cap tube, and that's the way you was taught, to make sure it's charged correctly. Now, It says the correct method to charging the unit is to remove and recover remaining charge, evacuate it, and measure in the correct charge. Print it on the nameplate. Right? Did I get that right? That's what your book says. Now, let's talk about the next part of service in this unit, and it is fan motors. Okay, so the code for this video is field piece. Now, when we're talking about electrical motors, take care when replacing motors to prevent damage. Don't bend the blades or then it's over with. Be familiar with the electrical power supply. All units must be grounded. If it's a motor, you have to reattach the green ground wire from the motor if you remove it or take it off. It has to have the correct voltage, of course. Electrical service may involve the fan motor and the thermostat, the selector switch, the compressor, and the power cord. All of that is electrical. Some units are equipped with energy saving switches. Okay? So there you go. Now, in your book, it says ground wires provide a safety circuit. Don't shock people. Okay? The fan motor will either be shaded pole or permanent split capacitor with a run capacitor. And I told you about mounting it. Compressors, when you have an electrical problem, it's either the starting circuit or the compressor itself. Those are the two things. Of course, you have to have power to it. You ever heard the old story about the lady who called up Microsoft, complained that her new Windows operating system wasn't working? And the guy said he worked it through some things and it was a blank screen, nothing was working. Finally, they got to the point where he said, "Is your unit plugged into the wall, your computer?" And she said, "No." So make sure the unit's got compressor, has electricity, and it's either the starting circuit, like you learned about start kits and all when that comes up. Power cord problems usually occur at the end of the cord where it's plugged into the wall. Either loose connections can be a problem from people stepping on it. If the cord ever becomes hot, discolored, or the plug ends or the cord becomes swells or swollen or discolored, you have an overheating problem. That cord needs to be changed out. And then when you start up the unit, check the amperage on it to make sure it's not overampering, and check the voltage that's being supplied in the wall. Do your job right. HVAC Golden Rules is on page 1457. And you have a couple of service calls in the back, but that's going to be the end of this chapter. I want to show you something here real quick. Let's see. This is when you're washing the unit out. Make sure that the unit's completely out of the window and it's on the ground. Take foil. If the motor's open, put foil over it and foil over your electrical controls. Then wash it. Once it starts to get a little dry, pull the foil off and you're ready to start it up when you get it in the window. If you soak all the controls in the motor, you're not starting anything up. So make sure you put aluminum foil over it. I used to have a box with aluminum foil in my truck just for those things in my service truck when I was just traveling all through the city of New Orleans, you know, doing my little thing. Okay, now, make sure you pull the filter out of the front of the unit and wash that out really good. And the only thing else you're going to want to do is blow all the dirt in that pan out. Blow all that gorilla snot and algae and scum all out of the bottom of that unit so the water flows again good. Wash off your fans, your blower, and all that stuff. All right, that was Window Units Week.